Welcome, welcome, and welcome back to all those who've been here before. You know the deal. To all the newbies, let me tell you, this is Beyond Evil, the what the fuck version of a true crime podcast. There is a fact based, no chatter podcast, an audio only podcast. I'll link the link below, or you can go to my website, beyondevilpodcast.com. You'll also be able to see images and a whole bunch of other stuff there. But this here is the same cases that you'll find over at the podcast, but these are riddled with my unsolicited opinions and probably a whole lot of bad language depending on the content. And I kind of go in and out and all kind of stuff, but you still get the gist of a case. So once again, you can stay over here and join the party. And please feel free to leave comments, questions, how you feel. I want to hear your opinions um, to the case. So leave those below. If you have not subscribed already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Um, Make sure you tell a friend to join us over here. And, hopefully when I get enough people, I can go live and we can have a real sit down sister girl talk because that's what this is. This is basically me talking to y'all like we longtime buddies and I'm pissed off. um, and if you're so kind, please leave a thumbs up. I hear that helps. You guys know I'm new. I am still learning how to put the pictures. Sooner or later, I'll be able to do that. Give me some time. I do got a day job. Um, but, you know, this is the deal. So, all of those that have not clicked the X and still here, I have one more warning. This is a case about a 7-year old. So, if you are triggered by child abuse, child neglect, child abandonment, anything about a child, this is not the episode for you. I do have 3 others that you can go check out or come back next week. I promise it'll be a little bit lighter of a case, but I don't want anybody to have any issues because of something they heard here. Um, there are images of this baby on my website, and I don't even think if I knew how to do all the fancy stuff, I would put the damaging photos up. I would let you decide at your own leisure to go check those out. Um, but I will describe some of them so that you get the gist of it. And they're pretty bad, pretty damn bad. Yeah. But let's get into it. So, if you have heard of the Hernandez case, then this is pretty much along those lines. This is just as fucked up of a situation. As, I mean, from the parents to the caseworkers, social workers, because in this particular case right here, there are no innocent people. I blame everybody. I mean, this child had over a dozen social workers, caseworkers, juvenile workers, just workers, everybody from Department of Mental Health, Department of Probation, Department of Children's Services, Department of Social Services, every single freaking department. And nobody could take this child out of the home? Really? Really? Yeah, so that's what happened. So basically, I'm pissed at everybody, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, I'm pissed at the mama and daddy, but the mama and daddy is in jail. So, I mean, you're going to hear a little bit about them here and there and there and here, but at the same time, they're in jail. I'm all for the death penalty, so I'm all for Friday asses, whatever, but that's not what happened. They got 25 to life, and there they be. But now, I'm going to tell you about some of the people that should have had something done because to me if your job is to monitor the welfare of a human, I don't care how old the human is, then you need to do that. If you feel you can't do that, then you need to stand up. And if you can't stand up, then you don't need to do that job because it's not for you. There's no reason you should have a, a death on your resume because that's what these workers they do. And let it be known in Kansas, 15 children died the same year Anthony did. Anthony, the same year Adrian did. And it was 2015. They took responsibility for two, Adrian being one of them. Really? 15 kids died and y'all not taking no responsibility? How's that so? And even the two that you are taking responsibility for, what happened? Because to me personally, I don't feel that um, you getting transferred to another unit or hell, even losing your job is enough for me. I just feel like there is so much more that should have to happen if you are in charge of a human being and they die a bad, horrible death. That's just me. So that's the 100% what the fuck issue with this whole entire case. So we have Adrian. Uh-oh, I tear up the site. We have Adrian. Adrian was a sweet little boy. He lived 7 years. Unfortunately, they weren't all good years. To be honest with you, I don't know how many good years he did have. Um, he was he was born into a dysfunctional family. He was the fifth of six kids by his bio mom. He was three um, of he was one of three to his bio dad. His bio dad has, they said six for the longest time, but then I read an article just the other day because I don't know why. When I'm done with the case, I still continue to keep reading. That said he had six girls that would make Adrian number seven, and he's the only boy. So I'm not real sure, but at the end of the day, it's a whole lot of damn kids. Um, and ain't none of them being treated right. There's a whole lot of victims in here, but we're going to focus on Adrian because he's the one who lost his life. Everybody else is living. I'm not saying living is good, but they are living. So, like I said, he was the fifth of six born to his mother. Only three, the last three, which is Adrian's sister, Adrian, and then he has one that's older than him, that were born to Michael Jones, hence Adrian Jones. And there would be 10 calls that go out to Department of Children Social Services for Kansas and Missouri. This all goes back and forth because the Joneses just kept going back and forth for whatever reason. And the very first call, though, would be called on Adrian's mom, bio mom. It was reported as neglect. What was reported was that she left him home alone. Now, Adrian has an older sister. The older sister, I don't know how old she was back then, but I believe she's like 20 or something like that now, or at least in 2017, the last report, she was in junior college or something like that. And don't quote me on that. She's in college. I don't know what college she's in, but whatever the case may be, she would be quoted saying that their mom was a terrible mom. She didn't take care of them. She would always pawn them off on people, So at the end of the day, the mama wasn't no prize. There's another report that says that she was on drugs. So I don't really know, but Adrian and his two sisters were taken out of the home for being left home alone. Now, here in California, you practically got to set your kid on fire for them to snatch it from the mama. I mean, they try to do all kinds of stuff. And now you'll hear later in this case that they did all kind of this shit that I'm looking for with the mama. They did it with the father, but the mama didn't get it. Now, mind you, some of these are the same damn caseworkers, same damn department. So I'm gonna have to say this one particular caseworker, she gets a gold star because she got the report. She went out there, she did her little investigation, and she snatched them babies up out of there. Like, no, this is what we're not gonna do. We're not gonna leave these babies at home alone. We're gonna do better. Unfortunately, I don't know who that worker was, and I don't know if she was one of the ones with the dad. But if she was, I'm gonna need an explanation on why you took them so quickly from the mama, but you left them with the daddy. I don't think she was one of the ones. I just can't see it being so. But I know that they need to take a page out of her book because, like I said, she was like, "Oh yeah, no, ma'am, you're not, you're not keeping. No, 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 that's not what we're doing." So he's 3 years old when he's taken from his mother. It's also said while she was doing her investigating on the leaving the kids being left home alone that the sister would tell the interviewer that there was a man who was in the room sleeping with Adrian and playing with Adrian behind closed doors. So I don't know if that was to segue into possible child molestation or child abuse, sexual abuse, because it didn't. It They got snatched up out of there. That could have been another reason why um, the caseworker snatched them up. Like she didn't like the sound of that. She didn't like that she leaving them at home. Yeah, we're not gonna do it. So that being said, they got shipped on over to bio dad, and he was 3. That was the first call. Now there would be, like I said, there's 10 calls total that just involve Adrian. There's several calls for all kinds of shit, and oh, involving the whole entire clan. But specifically abuse to Adrian, may it be neglect, left home alone, not feeding, being in a dirty house, whatever. If there's 10 calls. 10 calls, and they took the baby out the house once and then put him back. So yeah, no bueno. So now let me tell you before I get into the next few calls, let me tell you about what my issue with everybody else. Because you can clearly see what my issue is with the department of what the fuck, you know, with all of the departments. But I have a problem. My biggest problem, of course, is with the mom, the bio mom, because that's your baby. But she got 6 kids. I don't think she took care of none of them. So I can't really have that big of an issue with her because she was just a baby making machine. Like she was never a mother. So therefore, okay. But now you know who I despise? Her mama, the grandmama. Let me tell you about this dizzy dame. She Now she want to be all in the media. My poor baby, he shouldn't have had to suffer. Heifer, where was you? Because I can tell you right now, there ain't no way my mama will let her grandbaby not be within, a couple miles of her at any given time. There's no way that you are not going to let her see her grandbaby. You may, if I can't get custody for whatever reason, because they think the daddy is so law abiding and good for the kids, and they try to keep the sons with the father, but there's 2 little girls too. Now, mind you, this grandmama, she ain't made no claims or said nothing about them little girls. She now just focused on him. And is it because he dead? Because where was you when he was alive? She would go on to tell that she she made 2. She said this in a media interview. I called up, to the department twice I don't like to call people out their name, but bitch, his twice, his ass, the baby been gone since 2011. He died in 2015. Where was you? Where was you? So you called twice. What else did you do? Did you do anything else? Yeah, I don't think so. But now you want 25 million and the baby gone. Yeah, no. You can eat glass and die. Any fans of hers in here, don't come for me because I done worked for DCFS. I done worked for Department of Probation. I done worked for Department of Social Services and for a foster agency. I am standing in the glass house talking shit. So don't come telling me about what you think you know and what you don't know and all this. And I'm not a grandmama, but I damn sure got one, and I damn sure got a child who got one. And I don't know nobody who got a grandmama like her. I'm sure there's 100 of them, millions of them probably. But this is my show, the case I'm covering, and she can eat glass and die because there's no way in hell you want to sit up now and talk about everybody else when you didn't see about that child. The last time she saw that child was 2012 at Christmas. She'll say later in the interview, I don't know if it's old age or what, that she saw him the year before he died. Okay, first off, if you thought that sounded any better, it doesn't. Um, you went a whole year and I saw your grandbaby, but now you cry in the river, jump in it. So, but in reality, it was more than 1 year because 2012, 2015, more than 1 year, all day. So the eldest granddaughter and her went to go to the Joneses for Christmas of 2012. That was the last time those two seen them babies. He would go through all kind of hell after that. He was going through a little bit before, but all kinds afterwards. Where was she? There's also there's Michael, his dad, had the audacity to go on the news and say, my son would never do that. He is not that type of person. Excuse me, sir. When the last time you seen your grandbabies? Where was you when these babies was being abused? Because you can clearly see it. I mean, when y'all go see the pictures, I'm still gonna try, y'all. I really am, because it will be so good for y'all to be seeing it right now. But when you see the images of what he looked like in 2011 when he left his mama to what he gradually went to, it ain't pretty. It is not pretty. So there's no way a kind-hearted, sound mind person can look at that child and think he is okay. That's why I'm so pissed at everybody else, because they're supposed to have photos in the file. They're supposed to take a picture of that child every single time they see him. The last picture that was taken was the third call when a police officer went out. He took an image. That one don't look no better, but and that's only 3 months after he'd been there. He drastically changed. You can see it in his face. So we got Pops over here co-signing for his son, cheerleading that he would never do this, and he did. And what's just amazing about it all is that he had 32 cameras in the Kansas home that he rented in and around that captured most of the abuse. And it's public. So how can you sit there and say what your son didn't do? And of course, you got the stepmother claiming everything she did because she was forced by Michael. Bitch, please. You did what you did because you wanted to do it. You could have left at any time. You could have left when they took your kids away from you because you're a child abuser. and found you a whole new life somewhere else with your meth head ass. But you didn't. You stayed and you abused a little innocent boy who couldn't defend himself. So you are the monster that we think you are. You may want to believe you're not. Maybe that'll make you sleep well at night, but I hope somebody gets you in your sleep because it ain't nothing good about the treatment that that little boy went through that we actually can see. It's not like somebody's telling us about it. It was caught on film. So yeah. Now, moving on. Those are these are all the folks that they like on the they ain't no coming back from list. Yeah, it ain't no coming back from that. It's like it's a wrap. It's a done deal. Um, but now Adrian would Adrian would die. Adrian would die in the home in the rental home in Kansas in his little makeshift cell because the last May, June, July, last 5 months. The last 5 months of that baby's life were hell. And part of that hell was his little cell that they made out of the master bedroom shower stall. They put a piece of plywood to seal him in it and would let him out like he was in prison in solitary confinement where they let you out once a day. That's how that baby lived the last 5 months of his life in that little cell, strapped to a chair, naked by himself. Yeah, it's a rough one. So after he died, he was left there for 2 weeks while Heather went and bought some more pigs because I believe they had one. Um, and I think they bought two more or something like that. And they would um, starve the pigs for a week, a little over a week, and then feed Adrian's body to the pigs with hopes that they would be hungry enough to consume all of his little body. That would not be the case, but yet and still, it's horrific. It was found out that with the landlord, she discovered that they were actually going to jump ship, skirt out on the rent, and leave in December. Let me back up. Adrian Heather's gave Adrian a death date of September 28th, 2015. The medical examiner, they were when they got the body, they couldn't give a death date. They can give a time frame. They can say between August and that means August, September and October. That's all they can do. So his death date was given by his murderer. She knew when he died, and that's the date he has on his grave. And nobody would know. He wasn't reported missing. Nobody was looking for him, even though he had all these files and cases in Department of what the fuck, and nobody's looking for him. Nobody checked on him. It just so happened on Thanksgiving of 2015, one of Heather's friends or neighbor or whatever called the police because Michael was beating her and supposedly he shot at her. So they called the cops. Cops came out. She's so pissed and petty that she decides to tell the cop that if you look in that pig pen, you're going to find his son buried there or in there. Cops like, oh, okay. Well, they took Michael, for assault and all that good shit. Took him that day. They returned the day after Thanksgiving. Full forensic team found Adrian, took him in, and shortly thereafter arrested her, but not for Adrian's death or body. But I know they figured there's some more bullshit. We need to get her locked up too. Well, she was already squirrely and not right. So she had some other kind of warrant for theft or something. And so they took her in for that. And then of course, shortly thereafter, she was booked for murder, just like Michael was. But now during during all this back and forth and everything, the owner of the Kansas home that they lived in, I don't know what her true relationship was like because, well, Heather would be sentenced quickly. Like this was Thanksgiving 2015. She was tried, sentenced, and everything in like I think like 8 months or something. So it wasn't a lot of time, but I still think it was more time be, because well, let me tell you what happened. She told the landlady, "Can you please log into my cloud and give me pictures of my children?" She gave her the passcode. I don't know where she was to talk to her to get this. Like, did you go down to the jail to visit her? What exactly happened? Like, did she yell that to you when they was arresting her? Because if that was the case, that was that was still in 2015. Because what happened is that she went, logged in, and then that's when she saw the shit show. And she was like, the House of Horrors. She took a day, then took it all to the cops. Supposedly it was too late to use the evidence or the pictures for her case, but it wasn't too late to use it for Michael's case. So I don't really understand that, but nonetheless, the images that were made available are horrific, and it's just unbelievable that people can let a child be treated like this. And just for the simple fact of the house was so filthy. I mean, it had dead animals, it had rats, it had everything. I'm very, very surprised that Adrian wasn't eating roaches, um, rats, or anything like that as hungry as he was. Um, because they had dead rabbits. I don't know why the rabbits were dead. I don't know why the rabbits were in the house, but I know that they were there because a caseworker put it in her file, but she still didn't take them babies out of that house. She just left them there with that shit. Yeah. So what, so you basically what happened with the mom and the dad. But now these caseworkers, state agencies, law enforcement, faculty at medical facilities, social workers, grandparents, uncles, bio moms, all partially to blame, no matter what. Now, no, I'm not saying they deserve 25 years in jail, but you're supposed to be the watchful eye and you close them. That's a problem. That's a serious problem. So Adrian, he would tell anyone that listened that he was being beaten, starved. No one would help him. He risked getting beat more or having m- more things done to him by telling, but he still held out hope that one of them would actually do something. And honestly, he believed they would help him because if he didn't, he wouldn't have said anything. He just he just would have let it go. But he didn't. So this was an entirely avoidable child homicide, without a doubt. He was overseen by over a dozen individuals centered around his care. And from 2011 to 2015. And as I said before, he was taken out of the home one time and then put right back. So let's tell you about it all. Um, oh, and by the way, just so you know, because if I got a name, I'm gonna tell you what it is. The grandmama name is Judy Conway, if you want to look her up in all her glory. Um, let's see here. So the first call, like I told you guys, was for his mom. There would be a second call, but the second call was basically they called about one of the other children had lost a significant amount of weight, and so they were they were basically checking on all the kids. So Adrian is in this file because of that. And he was named as one of the kids who also looked malnourished. So it wasn't really other than just basically neglect or, like they weren't feeding them or something like that. And that was the second call, but the first call for the Joneses. The third call would be because the mother, she took her 2-year-old daughter to the hospital, to the ER, claiming that the child had a seizure. Well, that ain't what happened. The doctor is looking at the child and is examining, and the 2-year-old has internal bleeding, extensive bruising around her head. And he's telling this to her. And she says, well, Adrian, who was there with her, pushed her down the stairs. He said, okay, that still doesn't explain what I'm looking at. Then she goes to say, Adrian beat her in the head with a wooden rod because he gets so aggressive when his father's not around. Doctor said, oh, okay. Now, Adrian, who's there, has a black eye. So the doctor says, what happened to his eye? She says, oh, his father beat him because he hit him because he wet his pants. I don't know if she thought that was a good reason to punch a kid in the eye, but she said that like it was okay. Um, and they would, get their treatment, do all of that. And the hospital, of course, will call Department of Children's Services, file a complaint. Now, the complaint was filed, and an officer actually was dispatched out to go follow up on the case. So a social worker didn't go with him, and generally they go hand in hand, but she gave him the information. He went down there, and I personally blame him too. He is Officer Wall for the Topeka Police Department. Um, he saw that Adrian was hitting the eye. He relayed a message to the social worker that he was hit with a closed fist. I don't know, you can tell that, but whatever the case may be, you can. But yet he would still, he questioned Adrian, and Adrian said, yes, my dad hits me, he pushed me down. And whenever I say something or do something, I get pushed or I get blamed for, what happens to the other kids. And so the officer, it's like, okay, so, mind you, I told you there are 6 kids in this house, 3 of his from the other mama, and then 3 from Heather. And the eldest, they're all from ages 10 to 2. So the 10-year-old tells Officer Wall that she's heard Heather choking Adrian in the bathroom at night, and he sounded like he was dying. One right below her tells the officer that um, Heather only really abuses them because they're not hers, which means the three that don't belong to her, which is Adrian and his two sisters. Um, the um, the officer will report back to the DCFS social worker, and the social worker's name was Donna Sherlink. Um, and he will report back that Adrian was safe at the current location. How is that possible? How is he safe? And you just heard a 10-year-old who, a 10-year-old, you can kind of, they know what they're talking about. This is not like a 2-year-old told you this. A 10-year-old told you this. And you gonna say that him being choked sound like he dying at night is safe? Where you live? That ain't safe in my house. No, not safe at all. But so that's that's how that report went. Still during the investigation, DCFS conducted more interviews um, with the Michael and the sisters and everybody else. They did another little one-on-one talksy because at the time the kids were in school, so they go down to the school and they can interview them without the parents being around. So if they told you that she choking them in the bathroom with the parents there, oh, they're finna tell you some real good shit at school. So they say that they get hit by Michael. He hits them with his hand um on their legs, punches them in the stomach and on their bottom. Basically, he's hitting them where you won't see bruises, that's what I'm assuming. Um Now, however, they say the stepmother, she pretty much focuses all her beating on Adrian, and she kicks him. She can have on boots, she can have on no shoes, and she will kick him. She will push him down and she will kick him, and she hits him with whatever object she can get her hand on at the time. And this is said to be done for no reason. Either she's already mad, or the dad has yelled at her, or what have you, and that's they take it out on Adrian. Um, the social worker, Heather wasn't there. Well, you know that they did this at the school. So then after they finish that, social worker gets the report. She calls Heather on the phone and tells her, what's been reported. And that's, to me, the same thing that happened with the Hernandez boy. The teacher would call and they would tell the mom. That's about the dumbest shit on the planet. You already know that's going to make it worse. If you ain't taking the kid out, don't tell him. Don't tell the parents. But they do. So they did. And they told. And she had the audacity to cry and say she would never do anything to hurt any of her children. Yeah, right. So Adrian was marked high risk for abuse, but was also deemed safe to stay in the home. Now, mind you, they removed all three of Heather's kids for the abuse on the 2-year-old. They removed them. They went to go stay with her mama. Now, when they called Michael, from originally when they were first started it, before the officer came out, before any of that, they called him. He said he wasn't home, that he didn't, because they called him about punching. He didn't call him about the little 2-year-old. They just called him about Adrian. And he said he hasn't been there, that his wife is crazy and on drugs, and he didn't hit Adrian. Okay, first off, Adrian ain't her bio kid. So why would you leave your bio kids with her crazy ass and she on drugs? And you know this because you just said it. You're full of shit. So that alone should mean we need to take all these kids. We need to take all 6. But they don't do that. They just take her kids. And then tell him that the kids can stay with him, but she has to leave and she cannot be around the kids. It it was pretty much like a pinky swear. Like pinky swear your wife ain't gonna be in this house with these kids. What? That's it? That's it? Okay. So that happened. Now, mind you, this is 3 months after Adrian got there. So Adrian's still three. He's three. And they, he just had him sign a little document that promises that he's going to keep his kids safe. And he is not to use any physical discipline. And he is not allowed to have his spouse have any contact with his kids. That's about that's that's just idiotic. That's just stupid. And so that's December. January, like right after December, Michael called them, let them know that him and Heather were back together and she's welcome to visit his home in spite of that order. And that's that. Nobody did nothing. Nobody did nothing. Nobody said nothing. Nothing. Um, so now there's a fourth call because somebody else knew that the wife was there and they reported it right along with them living in filth and few of the kids got a spanking so bad on their bottom that the person who reported it, which I think was the nanny or caregiver of the other three girls, or of the girls, because she would later do like give an interview that she tried to do anything she possibly could to get them help, and she tried to report it every chance she got. So anytime there is a report and it's something that only people inside the house can see, I think they came from her, because I can't see Michael or Heather calling on themselves, and I don't think the kids were stable enough, or I don't think they weren't mature enough to know to do that. And if they were, bless their little hearts, but I don't think so. So they called in and said, that the children's they got a spanking on their butt, that they were bleeding. And there were guns laid out within reach of the kids, and mind you, they're all 10 to 2, and there's 6 of them, and something needs to be done. So social worker got the call, didn't immediately start an investigation, but there was an investigation that eventually got started. Basically what they did was they called Heather and asked her about Michael spanking the kids. She denied that the children were bleeding. She says, and if they were, it's a result of them having a skin condition. Bitch, please. Whatever. And so forget the guns, forget the house that's a hot freaking mess. Um, and okay, let's forget the spanking. You just not gonna do nothing. So Kansas DCF worker took no action to remove Adrian or any of the other children from the home, even though it was documented that Heather is a child abuser. Now, mind you, at this point, I believe the other 3 children are back in the home. So this back to the 6. How that go so fast where I'm pretty sure that the mama just let her child have her kids back. That's what I'm thinking. But they This is the same agency that removed Adrian and his two sisters from the bio mom for less than this. But they don't they don't do nothing. Not a thing. So Adrian, the that was January. The whole year done gone by. A whole bunch of, you know, just different stuff, not really um any reports or anything of that nature. But it's just, it can't be a very good time for him because when you see images of him, he drastically changes over time. So in 2000, January 2012, that's that case where they, house and beatings and all that type of stuff. So nobody visits him, nobody checks on him, nobody does anything. We're now at December 13th, 2012. And there's an assessment that's going to be given because during that year, Adrian would be hospitalized. He would be by the father, like they would take him and put him in a psych ward. They claim he's abusing his sisters. They claim that he's, starting fires, he's doing whatever. So he would see different doctors and be given a diagnosis of post-traumatic disorder. And basically from trauma, Heather tried to blame it on whatever happened before he got there. Um, but as I keep repeating, something could have happened there. Don't get me wrong, but he looked very healthy. And now a year later, he doesn't. So he's remembering that, but he's living his best life over here, but he still just can't take what was happening to him when he was 2 and 3. Miss me with that bull. So he they would, after, all these other visits or whatever, finally they would have him assessed. And this is like it's like a family service and guidance center that's in Kansas, and they base the claims off the danger to himself. So this is them going and telling the hospitals where, he's harming himself, he's setting fires, he's doing this, he's doing that. So they were like, okay, let's see what's going on with him. And it's basically a global assessment functioning test, and it's rated from 0 to 100. The higher your score, the better you are to handle daily activities. And he scored a 55. He would later score a 24. So you tell me this is the same for the abuse from 1 to 3, not from 3 to whatever age he keeps growing to be during this time. That's what Heather wants everyone to believe. So there are, he has this assessment. Christmas comes around. Grandmama and Conway, which is the grandmother, and Kiki, which is his eldest sister, they visit the Jones family home on Christmas. Supposedly, the dad was in such a nice mood. He apologized to Kiki because they did used to live all together at one point in time because the bio mom had 3 kids before she got with him. And then she had those 3. But Kiki would later testify that, she was scared of him and she couldn't wait to be out of the, away from him. And she was scared knowing that her brother and 2 sisters were living with him because he was just a big, scary man. But she didn't say he never did beat her. But so they went to go see, the 3 kids for Christmas, and he gave her $100 and he apologized for scaring her or being mean or anything in the past. But that'd be the last time Adrian would see either one of them ever again. And sometime between Christmas and March, Michael and Heather would pick up the 6 children and move to Missouri. And I'm assuming it was right before, it was at the beginning of March, because on March 4th, there would be a call Um, Dad making it the fifth call on Adrian, and it was reported to Missouri. The report stated that Adrian was forced to stand in a corner for hours at a time doing push-ups, sit-ups, and jumping jacks by the father and the stepmother. They would also leave him in the corner and forget that they left him in the corner. They had locks on the outside of his bedroom door, and Adrian was starting fires. It was also reported that there were children, the children were living amongst filth, which has been their MO. Every house, they don't do no cleaning, even though they got this nanny person. I don't know what's going on. But there was dead mice and chicken bones and cat litter and cat feces and everything all over the house. That alone is a health hazard. So you would think that, they be doing something. And at this time, the kids were also pulled out of school and they would be homeschooled in the Jones University Academy. Okay. So that's less access to outside world to help them at any given time. So the fifth call was reported as a level 2 response, which means it's a mid-range emergency. So they can call, they can go out, but they ain't gonna go out too soon. A level 1 is they have to go out within 3 hours. Check it out, see what's going on, you know, assess it all and do everything they need to do, but within those 3 hours. Um, Caldwell would be the caseworker for that call. She went out to the Joneses' home that was, in Missouri. She conducted an interview that involved speaking to Heather, Michael, and Adrian. But she interviewed Adrian in front of the parents. While Adrian was still trying, I told you he was in about the shits. He was like, somebody gonna believe me, somebody gonna listen. So he's explaining to them about that he's being locked in his bedroom. And the whole entire time he's saying something, Heather is interrupting. She's like, um, basically he's saying that, he's being locked in a room and say, because he's hurting the girls. He's, I don't get any food because he eats everything up, so every single time they, it just, she's got an excuse for everything that he's telling them. So, she doesn't do anything. Caldwell, the caseworker, would also interview the landlord, to ask, if they've seen the kids or whatever. And they're like, no, we really don't see them. We see a couple of the girls, but we don't see him. We never see him. And but they only been there a little while, so we didn't know. And so the caseworker would go back and she would request the records from Kansas on him. However, she would get the records, but the investigation would not go anywhere, even though the records that she received showed that Heather was not supposed to be residing in the same home as Michael and the 3 kids. She saw the floors in the house and everything being filthy. She even said something and Michael agreed. He said, yeah, no, it's a mess in here, but we just moved in. We're in the process of moving in. What, you bring the dead rats and shit with you and dump it on the floor? So yeah. And he said that the locks on the outside of the doors, they were there when they got there. Yeah. I'm sure when she spoke to the landlord said that's some bullshit, but that wasn't in her report. So, but they did admit to a history with social services, but they said Adrian was removed because of lack of supervision, and she blamed Adrian for her 3 kids being removed from her custody, saying he pushed her down the stairs and they blamed it on me. Hmm. Okay. So she's back, he's still left in the home. They're gone. So she goes and she gets she basically waits to get the reports and everything like that. But she returned back April 5th to conduct a follow-up. Adrian was interviewed again. Heather didn't, I mean Heather was present, but the social worker or the caseworker didn't ask him anything about abuse or anything of that nature. She just asked him how was he settling in and how did he like the new house. I'm thinking to myself, he probably thinking, bitch, I'm being abused and I'm hungry. What you finna do about that? So it was, and at the time he had a bruise. He had a bruise on his cheek and his forehead. Now, this caseworker, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say she's not a medical professional, because if she was, she wouldn't be doing this job. So you don't have the credentials to decide what's a bruise and what's not, and how bad it is and how bad it's not. You should try to get medical to give you their opinion. But you know what? She said it was dirt. Why would you even say it's a bruise to turn around and say it was dirt? I'm not even understanding. And on top of all that, where's these photos you're supposed to be taking of these babies when you go visit them? Let the photos tell us if it's dirt. Since you qualified, so is everybody else. Um, so then April 7th, she finally got the records. She gets the records and they show that this, it was a significant amount of records around involving Adrian and his stepmother. Like there was lack of supervision on the mother's part, but it ended there, and everything else um, was basically what was happening in this house, and that her kids were removed. Now, if your kids are your own flesh and blood are removed, what makes you think you're gonna treat ones that ain't your flesh and blood any better? So still, and on top of that, the dizzy bride shot herself in the foot. She ain't of sound mind. But you're gonna leave them in the, the caseworker concluded her investigation the same day, which was on April 7th. And she would close the case. She would close the call and not open a file without even explaining. And each one of these caseworkers has a supervisor. They all come as a pair. This is giving a backup, in case she missed something, this one should, say something. That ain't what happened. The supervisor, okay, that's it. Doesn't it? Mind you, they he's living in a home with documented child abuse, and kids have said something and all kinds of stuff, but they leave him there. So the whole entire call case was closed on April 8th, 2013. No further follow-ups were going to happen. So now we're in July and there's another call. And this call reported emergency abuse of neglect at the Joneses' home. The caller claimed that Heather was beating the living daylights out of the kids for no reason, and she was using objects around the house. Once again, this tells me somebody from the inside saw this, or because the kids weren't in school anymore. So who else is going to see, even if they do see it? Well, you would think. Oh, and on top of that, they reported that Heather was seen selling meth, doing meth, selling meth outside the home, doing meth in the home, locking the kids either out of the house for hours or in a room for hours. The call would go as a level 2. And would you know it, the same caseworker, Caldwell, was assigned to investigate again with the same supervisor. However, I don't know if she was out sick or what, but a caseworker by the name of Heather Miller went to the Jones home on the 8th. Michael and Heather were there, and they claimed Adrian was out, that he was out with his uncle, that he wasn't there. I don't personally believe that because that little boy didn't leave the house, but whatever. So Heather leaves. When Heather is leaving, she's approached by a sheriff for Clinton County, and he told her not to ever return to the Jones house without at least two officers, that it's for her own safety. That's already a problem. And he says he knows that he has an arsenal of weapons in the house. That's why he says two officers. So that just confirmed the claim of the guns being around the kids. Okay. So she comes back on the 17th. 9 days later, she got two little officers in tow. And Michael and Heather aren't there. Adrian is there with his uncle, Willie. This is another trifling individual who was in the house and this all this abuse, and he let it all happen. Um, he would first refuse to let him in. She's like, I need to talk to him. This has to happen, or there's going to be a problem. We have two officers here, yada, 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 yada. He goes on and lets them in. They come in, they talk to, they talk to Adrian, and Adrian tells them that this is him. This is what Adrian said. Sometimes he kicks me in the back of my head, and once a little bone came out. My daddy keeps hitting me in the head and punching me in the stomach, and mom keeps pulling on my ears, and it really hurts. Mommy and daddy can't feed me. I have to sleep without a pillow and a blanket. Those were his words while he is telling them of all the abuse that's happening um, to him. He, he also says that Heather pushes him to the floor and she kicks him, and Heather will lock him in a room or a closet, and they claim it was because he was eating all the food or to keep him from around his other siblings, because they claim he was being aggressive and threatening to them. Michael and Heather would arrive while they're interviewing. And of course, Adrian, now he's scared. He starts trying to change his story. Well, Miss Miller, she questions them about what he's already told them. And of course, they deny it all. But they do admit to locking him in the bedroom, calling him a problem child, and saying that he he threatened to kill us. He threatened to harm his sisters. And, he's been hospitalized twice, which was during that whole year I told you about. And the physician told them to lock him in the room when he was overly aggressive. The social worker suggested using other means to protect Adrian and his siblings. She also ordered a physical exam that included x-rays. Now, they got the exam completed the very next day by some random ass doctor. That doctor said he didn't see any signs of physical abuse, but if he didn't know him and he didn't know what he looked like before, or if there weren't any bumps and bruises, we don't know how this exam went, because he did not get the x-rays. All he did was get the examination, and the doctor said he didn't find any signs of physical abuse. According to Miller's notes, the agency could not ensure Adrian's safety if he was left in the family home. That's what her note said. Her note also said there were concerns that Adrian would be targeted because Heather was his stepmother. They were not her biological children. And she had a history of abuse on her biological children. So that it's like, okay, you got this, you said this, and so what are we gonna do? Like, you gonna take him out the house? Well, the same day, Michael tells them, I think it would be best if um, the state took over his care. It would be in his best interest. So the caseworker, she goes, I guess, and files her paperwork, and it, nothing really comes of it. But the same day, Adrian was examined, and the social worker was contacted at the juvenile office and asked if they could take over protective custody. The social worker documented that the juvenile officer called back within minutes and said, no, he should stay in the home because of his mental health concerns. Um, and the family being so honest about locking him in the room and why, then we just think that, it'd be wise for him to stay there, and we will provide some more services for them, like in-home intensive home services. Mind you, that same person had access to the database that shows all of the other services that they tried and didn't work in Kansas. But yet and still, this is what happened. So the safety assessment marked Adrian as unsafe in 4 out of 11 categories, um, which basically included being in danger because of a parent or a caregiver being violent and out of control. I'm pretty much sure they meant Heather crazy ass. But they found a multitude of evidence of neglect, but still, they did not remove him from the home. The records show that Missouri Welfare Office said in 2013 they couldn't ensure Adrian's safety, and yet and still, they left him in the house. So even 2 accounts saying they can't ensure his safety, but we're gonna leave him there. Michael and Heather agreed to accept, the little services that they were going to offer, and it's really an intensive service where they come every single day and try to give you all kind of treatment and therapy and group therapy with the whole family and all kind of stuff. Well, they did about a week and a half of it, and it's like every other day or something like that. It's like daily calls, but like physical visits, I think it's every every 2 days or something like that. And so they did a week and a half of that, and yeah, they just stopped. They stopped answering the phone. They stopped and going to the door. They stopped cooperating altogether. So by the time the agency finally reached the couple, Heather and Michael told them they were no longer living in Missouri, that they moved back to Kansas. The investigator in Missouri closed the case without verifying, without getting a change of address or anything. Closed the case. Done deal. So Kansas was notified, but you know how they were notified? Not because, professional courtesy and the checking, being there for this kid and calling and talking to somebody. No, they actually just called the hotline like you or I would do and report something. They just reported that on August 21st, 2013, making this the 8th call, because it's logged, it's the call. Um, the caller stated that medical and mental health needs were not being provided for Adrian. He was being locked in his room at night, and he was being targeted by his stepmother, Heather Jones, who is a documented child abuser. That's what it said. That's what it said. On on the 21st, the same day, a worker, called that in, but another worker and a law enforcement officer went to the Missouri home just to check it out. Thank the gods. Not the other social worker, not the caseworker. There's a whole nother one. Based off of um, the call that came in, they went out. It was like, okay, something ain't right. So they go, and you know what? The trifling folks is still in the house. Heather tried to refuse entry. She did not want to open the door, but she had no choice. And she was basically saying, denying telling them that she was moving. She was like, we didn't tell you guys we were moving. We didn't tell you that we moved. Okay, we just made that shit up. So then she claimed that Michael instructed her to discontinue the medication for Adrian because he doesn't have medical coverage, and they're told by a physician and they're listening to the physician because they're not physicians and they don't know what's best for him because they're not here. So they're still locking him in the room. And that's when, the caseworker, her name is Wheeler, she documented a high level risk factor, but still left him in the home. It's like, come on, people. So now that was August. That was August. It's now October. Worker Wheeler determined the case would not be open, even though all attempts to provide the required services were rejected by the parents. Everything was documented. Everything. She still said she was not going to open a case. I don't understand it. And her supervisor signed off on it. I honestly do not get it. I'm like, totally don't get it. So then now we're in February 2014. The ninth call will be reported. Once again, Adrian's being locked in the house. Locked in his room. He's not receiving any medical treatment. And he he's not he's not getting any interaction with any of the kids anymore. So basically, once again, I think this is another person that's in the house caring for the kids, or I don't know, another crackhead, I don't know. But whoever it is, they're seeing from the inside because they claim that nobody sees him. He's locked away. Um, and when he does come out, it's not good. So that call would be a priority one response. Yay. And so caseworker Amanda Donnelly, who for a minute I had her back. I thought she was gonna be one of the ones, that, but no. Don't let her fool you like she fooled me. So she was assigned to investigate. She would make first contact by calling. She called Michael, who told them that the family was living in Kansas, but admitted that Adrian was being locked in a room for eating up everything in the house and to keep his other kids safe and to keep Adrian safe from harming himself. And he still don't have medical insurance, but at the same time, he don't believe in modern medicine, and he don't need their services. That's what he tells them. But then he says, you know what? I do. I want the state to take over custody of Adrian because I'm tired of all this shit. And Donnelly, instead of at that moment, when somebody tells you, I want you to take over, I don't want to deal with this, you should go get that baby. You don't know what could happen. He's so angry. She don't. She leave him there, but she does tell the division that handles removal about the statement that he made about taking over custody. She also calls the another caseworker from Missouri and talked about the night, the call as far as, he's living here, he's living there, where's he living, what we doing, what's going on. He claims that they were in Kansas, but so she wanted to just relay the message so that they can do their part on their side. On March 3rd, 2014, Donnelly, with the assistance of law enforcement, went to the father's home in Missouri, even though he told her on the phone they were in Kansas. They were there. At that time, Adrian had suspicious marks on his forehead and chin again. And Adrian told her that he's he has to stand in the corner. He has to stand on one foot. He's got to do all this crazy shit outside. Just basically all the abuse. When you see the images, you'll see what I mean when I say all the idiotic shit he has to do. Um, about how he's strapped down to, different things and, made to stay there and in the same position. Um, and just unnecessary shit. And so then, Donnelly, she just, she could remove him, but she doesn't. Even though that the father lied to her and said that they weren't in Missouri, and she finds them there. So why is he lying to you? There's a reason for the lies. You should be afraid, but she's not. So during the visit, Adrian also shows her um, marks on his wrist, stating that for punishment, his dad straps him down by his wrist and his feet. This is when Donnelly lost me. She puts in her report that she noticed the bruises, but they're the marks, but they're so old they don't fall in the time frame that Adrian said. Dizzy Dame, what the hell that got to do with anything? He 5. What? He don't have no sense of time, and hell, who knows what he's been going through? Probably don't know when it's light or day. It doesn't matter. The point is that he's telling you that they are torturing him. And you do what? She does nothing. Nothing. She leaves him in the house. She does tell the people who come in, the department that comes in and removes, the children and do all that. So that's a good thing. But the fact that she didn't care about all the dead animals, living animals roaming the house and the filth and the marks and all of that, because, she doesn't do anything about any of that, she can kick rocks too. So the voluntary placement caseworker that got notified, she shows up the next day. She does a screening of Michael and Heather to voluntarily place Adrian somewhere else. She does a visual assessment. So I'm pretty sure she saw this and it's like, okay, yeah, he need to go. But they also have to do a questionnaire. On the questionnaire, one of the questions was, is there a current allegation of abuse or neglect? Them lying fuckers said no. Mind you, a caseworker just told her that she was just at your house. And then they left the question blank about, is there any concerns related to the safety of the child? Now, that was your opportunity to give him all of the things that you think is his fault on why he's doing what he's doing. But they don't. They leave it blank. Nonetheless, Adrian is accepted into the program that day. Thank the gods. So then he gets transported over to Family Guidance Center, FGC, and he gets a placement test, mental health, for mental health treatment and everything. And they diagnose him. They diagnose him with post-traumatic stress disorder with the score of the GAF, the first test score I told you about, of 24, which determined Adrian qualified for every single service they have available. Now, he's placed at a center called Spofford Residential Treatment Center, and it's located in Grandview, Jackson County, Missouri. It's funded by Department of Mental Health. And there is I don't know if he's a director. I'm not sure what he is, but an asshole. His name is Richard Bird. He decides, because he hears about the father not wanting Adrian back. That was a whole reason why they first started to pick him up. So let's not even worry about that. Let's worry about fixing the boy first. But no, what they do is he focuses on them and says he's concerned about paying for treatment when the father won't take him back. What? So if the father won't take him back, what you gonna do with the kid? What you gonna do with him? So no treatment because he don't have nowhere to go? Y'all can be starting now looking for foster care. Where the hell is this grandmama? Do you see where I'm going with this? So so he's he's an asshole. He does that. But nonetheless, Adrian is there. Adrian is getting the treatment that he needs. The parents are not active at all, and they need to be, but they're not. But staff there say that he is 100% better when they're not around. I believe they came one or two times, and those two times, Adrian was not the Adrian that they were getting used to seeing. So they pretty much knew it was because of them, unlike Heather, who seems to think it still was the bio mom. And but Adrian, they would get Adrian's records, and in his records, it's indicated, and had caseworkers, I guess, subpoenaed these records or had somebody get these records, they would have saw that he has had an experience for the last 3 years or 2.5 years, um, severe abuse, neglect. He exhibited behaviors confirming he suffered severe trauma, including night terrors, hoarding of food, running away, suicidal ideations, homicidal ideations, sexually acting out, aggression on a whole nother level, hurting animals, people, and setting fires, all before kindergarten. So during Adrian's placement, like I said, the parents refused. They refused to come to the treatment, be a part of the treatment, take calls, any of that. But he's progressing. And it is unfortunate that another assessment is made, and the Spofford Center determined that Adrian will be discharged in September of 2014, which is only a few short months. Even though the father didn't want him back, the center has put in their records that he is going to be discharged to his father. Even though it's in the records that he doesn't want him, they didn't make any attempts to look for other placement. August 11th come around, and an employee at the FGC Center, the FG Center that placed him at Spofford, sent an email stating that the father and stepmother would be required to meet the minimum requirements set by them and by Spofford's requirements to discharge Adrian into their custody. This included a transition period where the father would have 3 face-to-face interactions with Adrian per week, family therapy, overnight pass, family visits. All this has to happen in the next 20 days. These are the same people that ain't been there in the month's time that he's been there. So on August 19th, the director of therapy sent an email acknowledging the lack of participation by the father, but stated that the father leads a crisis lifestyle, and the father needs to be held accountable and needs to get with it. You can't force somebody who don't want to be a part of nothing. It's a setup for failure, and it's a fire waiting to happen. But these people with these alphabet soup behind their name think they can just tell somebody to do something, they're gonna do it. So on the 27th of August, there was another review conducted on the treatment plan and the estimated completion date of it. And the level of care changed, and it made his release date, Adrian's release date, December 13th, 2014. With the aftercare plan that included a whole slew of stuff. Now, you couldn't get the parents to just give him a medication. There's no way they're getting ready to do all this stuff. He has to have, he has to see a psychiatrist. He has to meet with the school staff at an outside school. He has to get with community resources, and there's a monthly report that has to be written, so he needs to be seen. That's what this states. So that went out on the 27th. Later on the 27th, it was still determined that his discharge date would be September 4th, even though they said the level of care can't end until December. They still said on September 4th they were going to let him go upon the father and stepmother completing the transition plan given on the 11th. Plus the 27th. You need him to complete all that stuff by the 11th? Whatever. So on the 28th, a 10th call was made, and I believe it was by somebody at one of the centers. They made a call stating the father is unwilling to meet with Adrian. He doesn't meet the needs. He will not co-sign for any of the treatment that he's supposed to get. He doesn't want to be involved at all. He is not reachable. He's above reproach. Everything. Just, it's all bad. So that was the 10th call on August 28th, 2014. And it was made to the Missouri Department of Social Services through the hotline. Adrian was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, as I stated, but Adrian would soon be discharged to his father, not returning phone calls or cooperating. And the father expressed he was not going to follow up on all this. When he received all the papers of what he had to do, he flat out said, I'm not doing none of this. It's not going to happen. They still discharged Adrian to his father at 8 a.m. on September 4th, 2014. Handed him with paperwork on enrolling in aftercare school treatments and all this other stuff, family therapy and everything. He already told y'all he wasn't doing none of that. Do you think Spofford followed up? He didn't. They didn't. There would only be one more call to Spofford, and actually it's not even a call, it will be one more contact, and that would be from the stepmother to the old therapist because she can't handle him. But they don't call them to check on Adrian at all. On September 23rd, another caseworker called, and she was advised that Adrian was discharged to his father and the father moved to Kansas. And mind you, they were in Missouri. Now they're saying that he moved back to Kansas without with really without research or verification that he moved. Like nobody went and checked, and they've already had two other instances where he said he moved and he didn't. But the 10th call didn't meet the conditions of child abuse and neglect. So that call was closed. No further action was taken. Supervisor signed off on it. On October 4th, that's when Heather sent an email over to the little therapist. Kiara is her name, over at Spofford, to say, he's acting out, he's threatening his sisters, he's not enrolled in school, and I just don't know what to do with him. 5 days later, Kiara responds via email and says, basically she reminded her of the treatment plan. She says, this treatment plan is required by you and Michael to maintain a structured environment, psychiatric appointments, individual therapy, and family therapy. He is also to be enrolled in a school. By not enrolling him in school or providing any of the above services, he cannot remain in your home. She then went on to advise her that failure to enroll him in school is educational neglect, and she should consider making a call to the hotline for DCFS to get assistance for Adrian, since she can't protect him or his siblings, and the other everybody is in jeopardy. And in order to be safe, you need to report it. She tells her she needs to report it. You tell the crazy woman that she need to report it. I'm surprised she even sent an email to them. So that tells me she kind of tried it. I don't know. I'm not sure about how I feel about that. But so but that therapist, who, thank the God, she's named in the lawsuit, because she didn't report nothing. She put it in her file. She sent the email, put it in the file, closed the file, and didn't tell nobody. Didn't make no call. Nothing. 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 So between December 14th and September 15th, Kansas Department of Children's Services would receive several reports that Adrian's stepmother, Heather, was posting photos of the torture and abuse inflicted on Adrian on Facebook. Not one of them was followed up. Not one, not one, not one, not one. Adrian would suffer the most of the torture between May 2015 and, of course, September 28th, when he died. He would be forced to eat off the ground, eat whatever he could. He would stand outside for hours with no clothes on, holding tiki torches. He would be tased by Heather 20 seconds at a time. The father claimed he couldn't feel any pain just because Adrian stopped crying. He didn't have it in him anymore. He didn't have anything left in him. He had been tortured so much. They would put cutting boards on his chest and on his back and wrap around a ace bandage or whatever, and wrap up his arm so he couldn't bend, so like a mummy. I don't even know what this is about. They would put him on a board, like this exercise thing, and wrap him up, wrap his head up, and all of this stuff. And I don't even understand why. It it was just unnecessary treatment, and he could have been removed from this, but he wasn't. So, like I said, nobody from social services, nobody from Spofford, nobody from law enforcement checked on him between May and September. He would be heard by one of his sisters through, I guess, events, scream out, "I'm going to die in here." Shortly thereafter, he died. But before he died, this, one of his sisters would tell the detectives that Heather's response to that was, "Suck it up." So the last words that little boy heard were, "Suck it up. This is why she should die." But um, it's nobody would have known that he was even dead had the police not been called to the home Thanksgiving 2015. Who knows how long they could have went? They could have made it to Utah where they thought they were headed if he not had Michael not abused Heather and the phone call was made and yada yada yada. Had none of that happened, they probably nobody was looking for him. Not his grandmother, not his grandfather, not his uncle, not nobody. Nobody was looking for Adrian. And after the fact, um, everybody wants to, have something to say. You should have had something to say while he was alive. And the lawsuit, I'm all for it, because at the end of the day, the little boy suffered so much. The landlord um, last name Hoovers. When she logged in and she saw all these pictures, she would say in an interview that one of the pictures was him standing outside in pajama pants, no shoes or socks, a short sleeve shirt, and it was January around 6 p.m. Per Hoovers, it's cold that time of year, but yet he's standing outside in a video. There was a close up of Adrian's mouth. His lips were covered in sores. Investigators deemed they were from him trying to eat through the plywood that was the door to the shower to keep him inside his little prison. Adrian's two little sisters in 2017, um, well, not little sisters, but one was 12, one was 7. I'm making them what, 15 and 10 now. Um, it was said when they were 12 and 7, though, by the grandmother, that they were in foster care undergoing intensive therapy. I don't know where they are today in 2020, but I hope they're in a better place. Um, the last thing the grandmother, she did an interview and she claimed, like I said, that she saw him in 2014. There's no record of her seeing him in 2014. However, in 2014, Michael did call the grandmother and tell her that Adrian was in a psychiatric hospital because he had turned into a pedophile. She didn't go nowhere. She didn't go try to see about that baby. There's no record of her going nowhere near that hospital. There's no record of her seeing him, wanting to see him, or any of that. She'll later tell you that she was told by him that she can't go down there. Try me if you want to. No. So, that's why there's so much hate for her. And she would continue to do interviews saying that I don't know why they gave Adrian back to him, that I would have happily taken him and yada, yada, yada. Miss me with the BS. You did not do what you should have done as a grandmother, knowing that your child was a crackhead. So miss me with all that. And it it angers me that the lawsuit for 25 million in punitive damages, I'm not saying that they're going to get it, but you know, was filed on behalf of Adrian's three sisters, the two that were living with him, and then the eldest sister, the biological mom, and the grandmother. The biological mom, supposedly the attorney said the biological mom is just there in name, that nothing would go to her. Why? Because we all know she a crackhead, because she tried to do a GoFundMe. That didn't go over so well. I'm glad to see that the rest of the world knows that that's just not what's going to happen. No, ma'am. And so I'm all for the workers being held accountable. I'm all for them getting the treatment that they deserve. Um, they should never be able to work around kids ever again. They better, may I take your order? That's what they need to be doing. Um, once again, it's a very sad case. I cover these because I want people to know that these kids mattered and we need to stand up for them, regardless if they're here or not. Better to stand up for them while they're here, but because social workers and caseworkers and law enforcement, they have a job, and their job is to protect, and nobody protected him. So this concludes the case of Adrian Jones, the little boy who lost his life way too soon. Once again, you can see the images I spoke of on my website, beyondevopodcast.com. I'll have a link down below. If you want to listen to the podcast and get everything without all of my commentary, please visit any podcast platform, Beyond Evil. And I thank you so much for spending your time with me. This was a long one. I was going to split it up into two, but I don't know how to edit yet. So I just figured once I start talking, I keep going. But please tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to come check me out. If you like the video, please give a thumbs up. it's a lot of work and a lot of research that goes into this to let you guys know. So sometimes they're not on time, but I'll try to do better and get it out to you so you're not waiting so long. And please follow and till next time.